Hello, everyone. We are the Tobacco Control and Prevention team from the Will County Health Department and Community Health Center. My name is Aishwarya Balakrishna. I am one of the community health educators on our team, and I will pass it to my colleagues to introduce themselves too.
Hi, everyone. My name is James Budrick Diaz. I'm also a community health educator with the Will County Health Department.
Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Schramm and a community health educator with the health department.
Thank you, James and Katie. So I'm going to start off by giving a little bit of a background on our project. So our tobacco control and prevention team have been tackling youth vaping in the community across Will County. So we've been actively working with community partners to reduce vaping rates and tobacco use. And we use data to inform our initiatives, and a big source of data that we use is the Illinois Youth Survey. And this survey is conducted every 2 years in the schools, middle schools and high schools across the community, to look at health behavior trends, substance use trends, and overall health trends among students. And we use this data to inform the programs that we're implementing on our team, specifically when it comes to tobacco and vaping, because we know that the vaping trends are alarming. Now, between 2020 and 2022, the vaping trends looked to decrease according to the IYS data that was collected. However, we are hearing from a lot of schools, parents, and administrators that vaping continues to be a pressing issue in the schools, and that many students are vaping and they're starting super young. And so although the IYS survey data looks promising and we see the trends are slowly starting to come down, we know that this is still a really big issue that we need to work on tackling. And we know that we need to work with our partners to work on this and bring these numbers down. And just to mention, in the 2022 IYS specifically, a gap that we saw was that we did not have the data from Joliet schools. So Joliet Central and Joliet West high schools did not participate in the survey, and that is a significant chunk of data that we did not have that might have made the numbers look a little bit different. So we are hoping that they're going to participate in the 2024 survey so that we can take in those trends that we're seeing in their schools as well, and use that to inform our initiatives. So we know that there are a lot of different things that are contributing to the vaping epidemic, specifically things like mental health. The COVID-19 pandemic is a huge factor, and also lack of knowledge on the dangers of vaping. And we also know that a lot of companies and advertisers are selling to minors and advertising directly to them to make vaping look appealing and cool. And so these are just some of the different factors that are contributing to the epidemic. And so our team specifically has been implementing an evidence-based education program in schools, specifically to mitigate youth vaping in Wilmington, Illinois. So Wilmington is a small, tight-knit community in the southern part of Will County, and we have been partnering with their middle school and their Wilmington Coalition to implement this program. And by doing this implementation, we were able to capture, engage, and educate youth in this small town community and have important conversations about vaping with the students there. And we have built a really good partnership with Wilmington over the last few years, and we were able to relaunch their tobacco-free teens group at the middle school, which is a program that they already had established to interact with youth and engage with them on these important conversations. So we were able to relaunch this group as the pandemic became more contained. So we implemented a program called Catch My Breath, which is an evidence-based curriculum that was developed by University of Texas Health Science Center and CVS Health, and it is focused on vaping prevention and reducing vaping initiation and continuation. And this curriculum can be taught as young as 5th grade and all the way up to 12th grade. So over the last 2 grant years during the spring, we've gone into the middle school to implement Catch My Breath through the Tobacco Free Teens program. And we reached 80 to 100 students across the 3 grade levels in the 2 each year that we implemented this. And we met with the students once a week during their free period for 6 to 8 weeks. And each of the grade levels had their own sessions, about 30 to 45 minutes, where we talked about a lot of different things around vaping, such as mental health and well-being, the toxic elements and chemicals in vapes, addiction, specifically nicotine addiction, and then possible effects on physical health and development that vaping can have. And then we also engaged with them on a lot of activities and discussions to make sure that the program was super interactive and that we were hearing out their thoughts as well. And really the goal of this was to educate them on the dangers and the health effects of vaping, but also give the students ways to cope with mental health difficulties and peer pressure, which are pressing issues that they're facing in schools. So a secondary objective that we also worked on during the second round of implementation with the students was to advocate for a more comprehensive and defined vaping policy at their school. So when we initially looked at their vaping policy, we found that it wasn't very well defined and not very specific. And it also really focused on just the punishment and the consequence piece, rather than having some strategies in there to help the students, especially those who were already vaping, so they can quit and have a healthier way of dealing with their stress. So really the goal of this was to have the students advocate for themselves and come up with ideas to make this policy better. And so the goal of this was to help students quit and then get help to deal with stressors and mental health difficulties. And we wanted this policy to focus on education and assistance rather than just punishment and consequences. So as a part of our implementation of the Catch My Breath program, we also conducted a pre and post surveys. So before and after we came in for the program, we had the surveys, so the pre-implementation and post-implementation surveys. And we asked a lot of different questions, including their current behaviors and current vaping habits, and also knowledge questions on vaping and vaping related information and their feelings towards vaping. And so I'm going to pass it to James to talk a little bit more about some of the data that we saw from the results from the surveys that we did.
Thanks, Ashwari. I'll be going over some of our pre and post implementation survey data. The following graphs are labeled with pre-implementation data on the left and post-implementation data on the right. Each graph's title is also the question that was presented on the survey. And additionally, we did use different answers for different questions. So for instance, some were yes or no, some were true or false, and some we actually used a 4-point Likert scale. One of the reasons why we used the 4-point Likert scale for some of the questions was because this actually omits the neutral response. So it actually, makes them form an opinion. And that kind of helps us with data tracking, as well as kind of seeing how their perceptions, behaviors, et cetera, kind of are shifting over the course of implementation. So the results on this page are actually from questions regarding student self-reported behaviors. Post-implementation, the data indicates that there was a reduction in current vape use, as well as the predicted vaping. The graphs at the top of the screen are students' responses to the question, do you think you will vape in the next year? Post-implementation, all students actually reported that they were less likely to vape, with 83% responding that they would definitely not be vaping within the next year, and 17% responding that they probably wouldn't vape. This is an improvement over pre-implementation data, whereas 81% of students reported that they definitely would not vape in the next year, 14% indicated that they would probably not vape, 2% reported that they probably would, and 3% reported that they definitely would. So we do see a kind of shift in behaviors. Bottom of the screen our responses to the following question. If you answered yes to the above question, have you vaped in the last month? So the above question that it's mentioning was actually, it's a two-part question. So before this was a screening question that asked students, have you ever vaped even 1 or 2 puffs? So what we're really liking to see, what we'd like to see is whether or not or how recently they are vaping, if they ever tried it. So from those responses, 30% of students who had reported ever having vaped said they had done so within the last month. Comparatively, post-implementation, those who had ever vaped hadn't done so since Catch My Breath implementation. Should also be noted that Catch My Breath implementation spanned the course of around 6 to 8 weeks. So it's actually a longer time span than the 1 month that we gave previously. So we see this as an improvement. The following data and graphs go with questions regarding perception and knowledge. So at the top of the screen, we had a statement, right? We presented the students with the statement, vaping would help me deal with problems or stress. Post-implementation, what we saw was, once again, that shift in their perception. After Catch My Breath implementation, 83% of students reported that they thought vaping would definitely not help. Comparatively, 82% in the pre-survey responded that they thought it definitely wouldn't. 15% indicated that vaping would probably not. This is an increase over the 11% that indicated that it probably would not in pre-survey. Of note, the 6% that reported that it would probably help no longer thought so, right? They weren't, or at least they no longer reported that. One thing that remained consistent was that 2% of the students, both in the pre and post surveys, reported that vaping would definitely help them deal with problems or stress. This 2% is actually seen in another perception-based question, which I'll go over in a little bit. The graphs in the middle of the screen are related to our knowledge-based question. So here we presented students with a statement. Most sweet, candy, and fruit-flavored e-cigarettes contain nicotine. Pre-implementation, 65% of students accurately answered that this was a true statement. 11% thought this was false, and 24% reported that they did not know. Post-implementation, we saw these numbers improve. 80% of students could now accurately identify this as a true statement. Meanwhile, 2% still thought this was false, and 18% still did not know. At the bottom of the screen, we have another perception-based question, right? We presented students with a statement. Vaping can help me make new friends. Of note, post-implementation, 78% of students reported that they strongly disagreed. Meanwhile, pre-survey results indicated that 68% of the students had strongly disagreed. So we saw a 10% increase. Additionally, we see that the 3% of students that strongly agreed with the statement no longer thought so. It should be noted that although the percentage of those that had disagreed with the statement decreased after implementation from 27% to 20%, this can be attributed to kind of forming stronger opinions on this statement. Next slide, please. So in 2022, pre-implementation survey data actually kind of gave us a baseline. So 27.6% of students had vaped or admitted to vaping, according to our results. In 2023, this number decreased. We now had 25.4% of students reporting that they had vaped at least once. After 2022's Catch My Breath implementation, students reported being less likely to vape within the following year, down from 12.6% to 10.3%. Comparatively, we see that after 2023 Catch My Breath implementation, all students indicated that they weren't likely to vape within the next year, with 83% reporting that they would definitely not vape and 17% reporting that they probably would not. All the students who admitted to vaping on the post-test survey reported that they hadn't vaped since Catch My Breath implementation. So we see this as moving in the right direction, kind of changing those perceptions.
Thank you, James, for going over that important data from the surveys. So just to wrap this up and kind of do a little look ahead on what we're hoping to see in the future as we continue to implement this. We are seeing, from our 2 years of implementation that the program has reduced students' acceptance of vaping, and also they are less likely to report that they will vape in the immediate and near future. And then we also know that they have increased knowledge on vaping related topics, such as nicotine addiction, mental health, effects on the brain. And we know that their knowledge is improving throughout the sessions and between the years as well. And so we really like to see this year-over-year improvement. And we know that the program is continuing to be effective and hopefully more effective as we continue to implement the program. And it's hopefully going to reduce those vaping rates and really, focus on preventing students from starting to vape and mitigating, or hopefully they're able to quit if they're already vaping. So I'm going to pass it to Katie to talk more about our plans for the future.
Thank you, Aishwarya. So kind of as James had gone over with the post results from the surveys, we do think that this is a valuable and effective curriculum. So we do hope that more schools within the county would adopt it. To mention Wilmington Middle School, right, they did already have that TFT program, so it was easy to get students to then participate and catch my breath because there was sort of like an easy in. But other schools are able to modify the curriculum kind of as they see fit for their needs and like their school. There are more schools that adopt Catch My Breath curriculum. We are expecting then vaping rates to drop within the middle and high school like students. That assumption, that kind of expectation we can get from future Catch My Breath survey results and future IYS data. With continued implementation with Wilmington Middle School, we are hoping that the reduction in vaping culture will happen for them, and that's the students who have already gone through the program continue their kind of post-survey results in the future when they get into high school. And again, we can kind of look at that in future IYS data and the curriculum survey results. We are also hoping to follow up with some of the students who have already participated in Catch My Breath, because Wilmington High Schools does have a sort of essentially a high school version of TFT. It's called Cat Crew. And Cat Crew does talk about like other substances as well, but it does also have a focus of tobacco. So we're kind of hoping to collaborate with them to see if the middle schoolers who've already gone through it, again, kind of have continued their post-survey answers in high school. So our references for our information, the first two are the IYS data from 2020 and 2022, and then the last two are from the survey results in the implementation of the programs in 22 and 23. If you have any questions for us, here's our names and our emails. Feel free to contact us for any questions or more information. Thank you all for your attendance and with our presentation. Thank you.